Hey everyone, your favorite pleb here with another God Guide. First I just want to say make sure to do all that cool YouTube stuff and let me know how I'm doing. But I don't want to bore you with all that, so on to the show. Today I do want to go over another mage I play a lot, and that's Vulcan. He seems to be my fallback panic pick. So this is a pleb's guide to Vulcan. The great thing about the Smith of the Gods is he is a super versatile god. In Conquest, I've seen him played in every role. When built right, he can be a jungler, he can fill the ADC hunter role, he can be in the solo lane, he can be a support, and of course, he can be a mid lane terror. For this guy, we will be mostly looking at him as a traditional mage, which even then he has so many different ways to be played. He's like a Swiss Army knife, which ironically he would be the one to make. So let's talk about abilities. First is his passive. In my opinion, it's not the best passive. It's called Master Craftsman. Basically, whenever you hit an enemy god with an ability, you gain 15% movement speed. And then plus an extra 15 MP5 for 5 seconds. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's not the greatest either. However, you can build into this if you want and make it a very good passive. Also, it's great for getting away from people, but more on that later. His first ability is called Backfire, and man is it powerful. As a squishy, I have been almost one-shot by enemy Vulcans. It's ridiculous sometimes. There's a lot going on with this one, so let's unpack it. It's a line ability that pushes you back, goes through all enemies and walls, and marks the first god it hits, causing that god to be marked, which causes that god to be prioritized from the turret, and they take 15% more damage from it for 4 seconds. It does a metric butt ton of damage. Late game, and it serves as your main wave clear. His second ability is called Infernal Cannon, but pretty much everybody refers to it as his turret. This is actually the main reason I started playing Vulcan. Well, that and his awesome military skin, which I got out of a chest, and my brother was super jealous of, and I laughed because he wanted to really play Vulcan, and I kept playing him because I liked the skin so much. But really, this turret is super annoying to deal with. It does a good amount of damage, and it has some built-in pen. The only real downside I can think of this as, all of his on-hit items don't actually proc with the turret. So this means lifesteal, Gem of ISO doesn't work, so it doesn't slow people when they get hit by it, etc. But besides that, it's constant damage, and it's a great distraction. Most people actually attack the turret first, leaving them open and not attacking you, or not attacking their own minions, so that way you have a better wave clear. This is especially great in things like Conquest. One more thing to note about that, though, is that the turret does take 50% more damage from minions, so it's a good idea to place it kind of off to the side and a little out of the way. His third ability is called Magma Bomb, aka the Meatball. It's a small AoE attack that does a fair amount of damage, and it knocks people back. And I don't mean just back as in you get hit by it and you go backwards. It actually, from the very middle, it knocks them whichever direction they are, you hit them from. So if you throw it behind them, it knocks them forward towards you. If you throw it in front of them, it knocks them back, left, right, etc. It's a great displacement tool, and it's good for chasing and peeling. So if, say, you are trying to chase someone, you can throw it in front of them, they walk into it, they get knocked back towards you. When the meatball hits the ground, it does knock everyone in the area away from the blast. And the way I kind of see it is people who first start playing Vulcan, they will use this as a way to displace enemies and attack them, while experts will learn to reposition enemies to wherever they want them. So say you see one of your teammates who is ulting, you can hit them into the ult, something like that. There's actually an endgame achievement that is for knocking someone up and then killing them with backfire. So next, let's actually just go over his ult. The ult is called Earthshaker. So what you do is you actually launch an entire rocket like this, and you hit whoever, the huge AoE on the ground. The AoE is almost the radius of an entire lane. Plus, the further it goes, the stronger it gets. While long-range snipes output massive damage, the area that it's going to hit is also visible to all, so not always the best to do that. This is a great teamfight ult, and feels great when you can hit 3 or more people at once. This is a prime candidate for getting your pentakill with 1 ability achievement. I mean, I don't know if that'll ever happen for me, but it's definitely something you can do. Late game, this thing can do upwards of 1200 damage at max range, so keep an eye out for it. But you will see, like I said, an entire targeter on the ground, so sometimes it's easier to just throw it at your feet or throw it at a short range so it hits faster, so people don't have time to get out of the way of it. Alright, so build time. Like I said before, there are tons of ways to build and play Vulcan. I'm mostly going to stick with the traditional mage types, but some of them are going to be a little different than traditional. Like a half and half. So build number 1 I'm going to go over is the burst damage. Building Vulcan as a burst mage is the simplest way to build it, and it's the most well-rounded. It's a little slower of a start. I always try to say I'm playing the late game, but it's worth it. First, go Mage's Blessing, and then a tier 1 boots. This is going to really help with your mana, it's going to help with your cooldown eventually, and then you have a little bit of mobility to start with boots. Next, we're going to build a Book of Thoth. Alternately, you can actually build the tier 2 of the Book of Thoth to start if you'd like. I actually personally say do that because it's going to, you need to stack, so it does give you a good amount of power to start with, and then you can go into stacking, then you can go into your boots. So next you're going to finish, after Book of Thoth, you're going to finish your boots. So even if you start with boots 1, you're going to build Book of Thoth, then finish Book of Thoth, then go back and finish your boots. I'm going to say go with the pen boots here, purple boots, not the cooldown or blue boots. The reason being is our next item is actually a Chronos Pendant. Chronos Pendant gives you power, MP5, and a butt ton of cooldown, and that's 20% cooldown, plus every 10 seconds it takes 1 second off all your cooldown, so it's going to be huge for you. Next, either you're going to go to the Spear of Desolation, and that's the one that has cooldown with it. That's used to be Red Spear, but now it's got power, pen, and cooldown. You're going to go Divine Rune if they have a lot of healing, or Obsidian Shard if they're having some super tanky gods. I don't recommend going with Blue Spear because you don't really have a lot of tick damage and doesn't really add a whole lot to your kit. So just choose whatever your playstyle is and go with the flow of the game. That's actually just a good way to think of ending games. Go with the flow of it. None of these builds are 100%. So next is going to be Soul Ringer. It has power, it has mana, which Book of Thoth turns into more power. Plus the passive does a % of damage to an enemy. So this is going to be huge for any tanky targets, anything like that as well. So if they have a lot of health, they're going to do more damage. So, and then last, we're going to go over a couple of the options you can do. I would go with Product Tahuti personally. It has a lot of power at MP5, and its passive does 25% more damage if the enemy is under half health. This can be subbed out for anything else you need to as well. So I also suggest Book of the Dead if you are being hard targeted. It does give you a health shield based on your total amount of mana, and once you go under a certain amount, it gives you it really can save your life. Next, we're actually going to go over a more support type build. Now, this is if you want to go the tanky sort of supporty route. It's not going to be 100% power, but you're still going to do a fair amount of damage. This is a good hybrid of health, power, and also some protections. So you can be in the fight still, you can stay around for a while. First, start by building the Warlock Staff. This is a 100 stacking item, so it's best to get it right away. It starts you off with power, mana, and health, but you also get power and health per stack, and that's again up to 100. So by the end of it, you'll have an extra 300 health and 50 power. It's huge, especially if you're trying to be a tanky, more of a tanky target. You're gonna have a lot of health from it. Next, we're gonna go into Blue Boots. Just nice and easy. It gives you mana and cooldown. Next, we go into the Hide of the Urchin from the Cloak Tree. This item actually stacks per god kill or assist, and once it's fully stacked, I should say, you gain a health shield. And then I think it takes 7 stacks, I believe, to fully stack. And with each stack, you do gain a percentage of health and mana and stuff like that. So it's, once again, it's good for trying to absorb a lot of damage. Next, I'm gonna say go into Spirit of Desolation. You get a good power boost from it as well as the pen and cooldown. So it's all around, right in the middle. Next, go Book of the Dead. Like I said before, this gives you that health shield. So now you have 2 different kinds of shields total. But with this, it's if your health drops under 40% rather than until you get hit by something. So it's you're being basically shielded on each end of it. And you also get 20% of your total mana as a shield from the Book of the Dead. So, the 40% is from the cloak. The 20% is from your mana as a shield. So it really, if you're in the middle of a huge team fight, it's gonna save a lot. Last item I say is pretty much any power item you want. Soul Reaper's good, Tahuti's good, or you can even go Bancroft's if you want a nice power spike. It gives you mana as well, it gives you lifesteal. So basically, whatever you want to help try to boost your power. And now the third build I'm going to go over is the speed build. This is a movement speed, cooldown, and attack speed. So it's all about all different kinds of speed, I guess.
Well fought. Farewell.
This is a fun build, but it's not always going to be the best build. So first you're going to start with Blue Boots. You'll need the cooldown and the mana early on. Next you're going to go into something in the ring tree. I suggest Amount of Grip. I think it's the best one, but Tell Kinds works too. Honestly, it's really any of the rings will work, but Shaman's Ring doesn't really have attack speed, so in my opinion, it's the least of them. It doesn't give you the most power though, so it's up to you. After that, we're going to go into Bumbo's Mask. I don't normally like masks, but this one works here. This one gives you 35% movement speed, but you take a little more damage and you do a little less damage. It does give you power as well, though, so take that as you'd like. But I think that this is almost a core item on Vulcan, especially if you're trying to go for a speed build. Then we will move into Polynomicon. This provides some lifesteal, but more importantly, it's the passive you want. After using an ability, your next basic attack deals an extra 75% of your power. So if you're being an auto attack god, this is really going to help with that. This can only happen every 3 seconds, but with this amount of cooldown, your backfire is going to be up every 3 seconds. So you hit them, keep auto attacking, hit them, keep auto attacking, so on and so forth. Next is going to be a pen item. I say Spear Desolation is going to be the best for the cooldown and the power, but really it depends on how the rest of the game is going. And then the last item I'd buy is going to be Rod of Tail. Tons of power, and the passive works for basic attacks too, so you can chase people down and never really let up. This is, in my opinion, a good build to start for a Vulcan jungle, but it's by no means perfect for it. Alright, so last we're going to cover some elite strats, as the cool kids say. First, let's go over ability order. I personally always put my first point in my turret. And just so you know, this is going to be, I'm talking about for Conquest, for this part, first part here. Any other modes, you start with at level 3, so you can put 1 in each. But if you're starting in Conquest, it's level 1, so I always put my 1 in my turret. Most people will say to put it in your 1, which is backfire, as it's your main wave clear. But I think that the turret works better because you are now hitting twice if you're auto attacking, and you can poke the enemy while your turret clears lane. Also, like I said before, the turret is just a great distraction, as most people attack it first. Next, I put a point in my backfire, which is main wave clear, and then 1 in my meatball. My 4th point will go into my turret again. Each point of your turret gives it more protection, so that's kind of why I like to build that first. And then 5th is my ult. Now, next, depending on what actual game mode I'm playing, I'll be leveling up a little differently. In Conquest, I'll alternate between my 1, the backfire, and 2, the turret, while putting points in my ult whenever I can. I'll normally, after a few points, put 1 in my meatball just so I can help with the damage. But I'll always be alternating, kind of keep them even between my 1 and my 2. In all other game modes, I almost always keep my turret 1 level up above all my other abilities. 1 to 2 levels. So I'll be level 3 or 4 on my turret, and then I'll go to level 2 for my backfire, level 2 for my meatball, or level 3 rather. You know, I try to stay at least 1 up. And like I said, that's so that way it's harder to kill the turret earlier on, and it's going to do so much more damage and be just that much more annoying. Here are a few other things to really go on, try on Vulcan, some other cool strats. So when placing his turret, remember that it takes more damage from minions. I think I said this earlier. So always try to place it off to the side. This also helps with enemies too, as now they have to either attack the turret or attack the minions, so they really can't attack both, no matter what their ability is. And since the turret has a nice wide cone that it can attack on, it's going to you're going to have an easier time placing it right. If you're being chased, it's actually best to throw your turret down in the direction you're actually facing, rather than trying to face it at the enemy directly. I found that this is probably one of the best ways to help peel for yourself. This way you can proc your passive whenever it gets hit, they get hit by the turret. And it could actually be enough of a threat to make them back off. If they're chasing you and they're kind of lower on health, they're going to be taking a good amount of damage trying to just chase you. Also make sure to throw your meatball at your feet to get them off of you. And then also, remember that backfire does push you back, almost like a dash, just behind you, backwards dash. So what you could do is you could spin halfway around, backfire, and then immediately spin back the way you're going, and kind of dash your way forward like that, if you wanted to. That's a little harder to do, harder to get it right, because spinning, depending on what your sensitivity is on, you never know. You could also throw people off with your backdraft. You can be running towards your fountain and then backdraft off to the side, and they jump and they miss, and now you can throw your turret down and you can keep going. But again, that all takes a lot of practice too. Alright, so that really does just about wrap up this Plebs guide. I do hope that you enjoyed your time here. If you did, drop me a like and consider subbing if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments if you learned anything or if you have a better way of doing things. I would love to take that constructive criticism and try to, see what other people are doing. I by no means have the perfect guides for anything. Again, that's why I call myself a pleb. Also, I just want to give a thanks to my brother Sean, who has been helping me by keeping me, encouraging me to keep doing these, whether people actually listen to them or not. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover with a Plebs eye as well. I mean, again, I have by no means a perfect player, and by no means am I the best at the game, but I can offer at least a how would you maybe ground floor, a casual way of looking at things rather than professionals or anything like that. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a good one.
Wow! 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 Woohoo!